I'm joined by Mayor Donna Deegan. From soccer to healthcare to a reunified breakfast for a civil rights icon, it's been a busy week of news at City Hall. So we are here to ask her and also take your questions for the mayor. You can reach out via social media. You can tag us on X at FCC On Air. You can call us at 549-2937, or you can send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. But the mayor is headed to another event, the Fallen Firefighters. So we only have her till 9:30. So keep it short and sweet if you do call.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So let's start with the most recent headline from the news cycle this week. City Council voting last night to approve millions of dollars in contingency spending.
That was just huge.
Talk about why that was a big thing.
Well, I think when we began this process, we started to focus on the things that we really wanted to move forward. And we knew that there were a number of those things that also council had as priorities. From the critical quality of life study that they did. And so we started to focus on what can we do that we think would really move the city forward. In our transition committee, we had, over 1,000 people that took part in 7 committees to help us move the dial on things like housing and homelessness and veterans issues and arts and culture, health, all those things that are so important to the quality of life for our citizens. And they came up with some recommendations, I think, that also resonated with council. And we spent a lot of time trying to get it done, and I was just so grateful last night that we got a unanimous vote.
A lot of that money for homeless issues. Talk a little bit about why that is such a big focus for you.
Well, obviously, we are in a situation right now where housing is a crisis. There are a lot of people who cannot afford to remain in their homes. There are a lot of people who are at risk for becoming homeless. And so what we did with these initiatives is that we took everything from an at-risk population of people who are on the precipice of homelessness. Council President Salem wanted to create a fund that we could both support that would help those folks that are on the precipice get some rent payments and things like that. So we did that all the way through the process of helping first-time home buyers with payments to get into their homes, and then trying to help those who are chronically homeless. So there are programs in this pile of money for all of those things, and all very critically important to dealing with this issue.
Where do you see Jacksonville on the homeless issue compared to other cities? I know that we have started to see, I think, a little bit more of a street population of homelessness here in the way some other cities have in a much bigger way.
Yeah.
But how do you view where we are relative to other cities?
Well, what you said is really the truth. Relative to other cities, we don't have the numbers of homeless people that you see in other large cities. But we do have a situation, as you said, where we're seeing more and more homeless people that are on the streets. And we have a lot of people that are at risk for homelessness in our city. People that are really hanging on by a thread on that last rent payment, or whether they've had an issue with a job or whatever. This has been difficult for a lot of people. Rent prices have been skyrocketing for some folks. And so
Really?
it is something that we absolutely have to deal with if we don't want that explosion to happen. And I think that's why all these issues across the spectrum of affordable housing and homelessness are going to be critically important.
So there's emergency rental assistance. There is money for families who need information about how to find a place to live. What about the backlog of just low-income housing needs right now? I mean, that's an issue that is not new, but there's thousands of families that are waiting for affordable housing.
We have 140,000 people on a waiting list for affordable housing. Think about that number. And we stopped taking, we stopped counting at 140,000. It's not like there's not more than that. So we have a lot of people here who need affordable housing. So we are extraordinarily focused on how we move those numbers up. We need to create a lot more affordable housing in our city. We need to also, while we're doing that, make sure that we're focused on crisis housing for folks that we need to get off the streets and into crisis housing before we can even get them into affordable housing. So all those things just, I think, incredibly important for us to focus on. And I think, as I said, the good news is I think council is very much focused on those issues as well. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them to create more affordable housing. There are some things in the pipeline, but also we just need to do a better job of making sure that we're getting more of that out there more quickly.
So we've got a message from Ricardo. He sent an email. It says, will the mayor take down the Confederate monuments before the legislature makes it a crime to do so. I think we've talked about this before in terms of why can't you just take it down? It's not in your hands.
Well, look, it's a situation where we will continue to look at options there, but the council at this point does not seem like they are of a mind to really look at this issue at the moment. We have a lot of big issues that are coming up. I think right now they don't feel like this is an issue that they want to deal with. We're going to continue to look at every option out there, but at the end of the day, I cannot be moved one way or the other by threats of what might happen in the legislature. I am hopeful that at some point we get to a place with council where we can come to a resolution here. But I can't let threats from legislation that I frankly think is unconstitutional on its face have any impact on if and when we act on these things. Obviously, I have said specifically that I would like to see those monuments come down. I think that there are a number of folks on council that would like that too. It's a thorny political issue for a lot of them. So I'm still hopeful that we will get there.
And that is legislation that's being proposed by a Jacksonville lawmaker, Dean Black.
That's correct.
Yeah. So note from Tom on the west side, he is concerned about the increased cost of the stadium and the monuments as well. The increased cost of the stadium, I guess, just being the cost of the stadium.
Yeah. Stadium
improvements.
Well, look, we're still talking through that. We're only just now getting to the point where we're talking through revenue sources and what each of us may be responsible for. I really think that we have a great negotiating team in place. And I believe that the Jaguars are very open to working with us as well. I know a lot of people have said, this is the Jaguars are going to say my way or the highway. I really believe when we get to the end of this agreement, we are going to see a great community benefit in what we are doing with them. I believe we will get to that agreement. Our hope is to get there at least in structure sometime in the spring. And I think we're on track to do that right now.
I want to talk a little bit about the Unity breakfast that was announced Monday. We talked about it a little on the program on Tuesday with some of the architects of that agreement. But so this was 5 years of a divided breakfast honoring Martin Luther King. How difficult was it to bring the group together and find a unified plan for a joint celebration or a unified celebration? Well,
it's simply, in my mind, listening. We brought all the groups together that really we wanted to be a part of this. The NAACP, the chamber, the business community, all of us that really wanted this breakfast to become unified again. I think we all wanted that. And I just think that over the years there were steps that happened, things that happened that caused those communication lines to not be as open as perhaps we wish they would have been. And so it was constant meetings. It was what we would both like to see, or all like to see. I shouldn't even say both, all of us. And I think we all got to yes on that because we all wanted the same thing. So it's a first step. It's not an end step. It is a first step in what I hope will become a greater ability to see each other's humanity, to listen to each other, to have those very uncomfortable conversations that nobody wants to have, but that we absolutely need to have on every issue that is facing this city. If people feel like they are not heard, how do you expect them to be involved in their government at all? And so my goal since I came into this office, whether it was with those community conversations or with this, is let's get people in the room and actually listen to what their concerns are and see if we can come to a place. And so I'm really grateful we were able to do that.
How much of the role of mayor is being symbolically successful or symbolically positioned on an issue to kind of motivate people to either come together or to engage on an issue? I mean, in terms of like, you've done a lot of community meetings. This is symbolically, I think, very significant move for the city. The optics of a dueling MLK breakfast were pretty terrible.
Well, yeah, this should be low-hanging fruit, right? But it took a whole lot of conversation. If you'll give me a chance to, I'd love to give people the website to order the tickets to the MLK breakfast. It's jacksmlkbreakfast.com. We'd love to have the whole dang city there. We really want to sell this out and show people that we're all about unity and look, I think symbols are important, Ann. I think it is important to lift the right issues. And to me, the right issues are issues that bring our community together. And that's really what I'm about. So whether it's actually moving the dial on legislation like what we saw last night, or whether it is talking about, something like the MLK breakfast, I think both are really important, because I think that a city is, what it presents itself as. And we have to make sure that we're bringing everybody in.
And that breakfast is on January 15th on MLK Day.
January 15th or January 12th? I think it's the 12th. I think it's the 12th.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. We are talking to Mayor Donna Deegan. If you want to call in or email in with your questions, you can call at 549-2937. You can email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We have a comment from Tim from Orange Park. I think he wants to join us. It is, I think, again, about the statues. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. It's about the statues. So if by chance we cannot take down the statue that honors slavery, is it possible we could put up like a monolith with a plaque on it that talks about the disgrace of slavery and sedition, as close to that existing statue as possible? And thank you so much. I'll take my answer off the air.
Thanks, Tim. And so contextualization is something that always comes up in these discussions.
Yeah. Look, I have said from day one, before day one, that I believe these monuments need to go. And I hope that eventually that's where the discussion goes. I think that it's important that they not sit in a neighborhood where our black citizens have to be reminded every day that this is a monument really to a time that denied a lot of folks their humanity. And so I would personally like to see the conversation go in that direction. But certainly everything has to be on the table at this point. So I think, then you'd have to get to the point where you're discussing what does that look like, right? What is the contextualization look like? I just, to me, they shouldn't be there. That's the bottom line for me. I think that if we are going to be a forward-facing city, our business community will tell you this all day long. It's not a good look. And frankly, I just don't think that folks in that community should have to face that all the time.
It takes a while for this city to tackle some of those issues, and sometimes it really is trial and failure. I mean, I remember it took many, many years to get the name of Nathan Bedford Forrest off of Forrest High School. He's a Klan founder. Took a really long time to get an HRO passed in this city.
It sure did. But we did. We got there. And that's the important thing. One of the things that I've said to people over and over again, especially people on my side of the aisle, is I think they expected me to get into office and flip a switch and everything was going to be, different and exactly as I envision and want it to be. That's not how it works. We all have to work together to get to a place. And people are very clear on where I stand on this issue. But we've got to work together to get to a place. And I think that there are so many issues in our city that are going to require that collaborative work. And so I would ask folks to be patient and know that I am being very intentional in this process and will continue to do so. You've started to see those numbers move, Ann, in terms of public polling. The public is starting to be more in favor of not having these things up and around. I feel like we get stuck sometimes in arguments, but I think that the more we talk to each other, I think the more it's going to be clear that that's what needs to happen.
So one of your campaign priorities you have had some success in recently, that's the issue of health.
Mm-hmm.
So you had initiated a program to connect Jacksonville residents to health insurance, basically using a website to connect them to the marketplace for health insurance.
Well, listen, there's so many things, and this is another thing that I've talked about incessantly, is that there are so many things in our city. There's so much that we have to offer that people just don't know about. So education is so key. And guess what? It doesn't cost us anything to go to the website or to get community partners, to get business partners, to get media partners, to push out this information and say, hey, you may not know this, but in some cases you may qualify to get health insurance for you and your family that won't even cost you anything or very, very little, which will save you thousands of dollars, which will save our community so much money from showing up at the emergency room. So we had a 22% increase in the number of folks who are signed up for health insurance, which is historic. We've never seen that before during an enrollment period. So I'm so excited about that. You know that health is my absolute passion. As a 3-time breast cancer survivor who has seen so many people just living in fear because they don't have the resources they need. We found when we went to a navigation model at the Donna Foundation where we connected people with patient navigators, it was transformational for them. Because it's not just the one-time help. It is the fact that they actually get the tools they need to get connected to insurance or get connected to other resources. Education is what really will move us forward. And I think that this is a great example. If people will go to getcoveredjacks.com, they can get more information about that, but they'll also get connected to a navigator, which will help them to choose what kind of plan will work for them. And that means they can have primary care that works for that's a big deal. They get mammograms, they get screenings. They get those are the issues where we need to move the dial, Ann, because on so many of those primary health issues, we are in the bottom half of the state and some of the worst in the country. We need to make sure that people are getting that primary care health. And then should something catastrophic happen, they're also covered.
It's interesting that you talk about low-hanging fruit when you are trying to make some initial big steps. And it's almost like Malcolm Gladwell had that idea of nudge, where it just takes a little bit to sometimes get people to do something really beneficial to them, whether it's savings or, healthcare or something like that. But you almost just have to create a pathway for them to engage and an opportunity to do it.
That is everything, I think. And I think that's everything in terms of our whole city. Let's get people engaged. Let's show them that we care enough to offer them the tools that they need to be successful. That is simply common sense. And so I'm excited that people are engaging.
So we have a message. Kevin from Nocatee has a question about whether we're thinking about Nocatee. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome to First Coast Connect.
Good morning. Thank you, and thank you for taking the call. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Thank you. I've lived here almost 8 years, moved up from South Florida. I live in Nocatee. I live in 15% of Nocatee that is part of Duval County. And in my almost 8 years, I've never seen a mayor come up here.
Come on now. I've been there a bunch.
You mean the former mayor? You mean the former mayor? Or
I've
the
spent
current?
A lot of time in Nocatee, I'll be back.
Former mayor's not been here. We have a lot of problems with police response. Danny Beckton, who was our councilman, managed to get a compact with St. Johns County for the fire department. But on the whole, we feel neglected. Everything we hear, and particularly on First Coast Connect, we hear about a lot of things about downtown. The Laura Street Trio, I said I've been here 8 years. I thought they were going to start building on it 8 years ago. So everything that we seem to hear about seems to be focused either towards downtown or the Jag Stadium. And speaking to my neighbors, we feel neglected down here.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate your feedback, and we'll consider that certainly. I mean, Nocatee is a strange breed, right? It is kind of straddles. It's this giant planned community, but developers built it in 2 counties.
Right.
And there is a portion of it that maybe doesn't quite know where it fits in.
Listen, I get that. And I don't want the folks in Nocatee to feel like they're left out. It's just that when we look at the things that we have needed most desperately to move the dial on that will also help people in Nocatee is some of these things that we've talked about in the issues that we're dealing with. You have to deal with infrastructure issues. You have to deal with health issues. You have to deal with those issues that are also impacting everybody else in the county. If we can be successful on some of these initiatives like literacy and some of the initiatives that I think will lower the crime rate, maybe your police response time is better. There are all sorts of things where the dots are connected. And while I don't want you to feel neglected, I want you to understand that to me, you have to go to the spaces that are having the greatest level of neglect and disrepair and deal with those so that the rest of the county can prosper. And that's what I've said to people over and over again about both downtown and the focus on the urban core. The commercial development that will come out of that will create so much more tax revenue for us to be able to deal with all those issues countywide. It's incredibly important that we get downtown right. It is incredibly important that we deal with the infrastructure issues and the neglect in the urban core. And that's going to help everybody all the way out to Nocatee, I promise. But I'll get out there. I've been out there. I'll come back. I promise you we haven't forgotten about you out there in Nocatee.
So a message from Jim on Facebook. He says, did the legislation passed last night include funding for the resilience plan?
I don't think there was resilience in there, but we have gone after. I think there was something in there in terms of federal grants that we're going after in terms of sustainability and resiliency, and we're working very, very hard to bring as much grant money down as we can for resiliency and for those issues.
There was budget money though for resilience in the previously,
yes,
and some
yeah,
new position.
For that, and also in the CIP. But at the end of the day, these issues that we dealt with here were issues that we felt were things that we could work with council to get across the finish line that are going to affect all of our citizens, as will resilience. But we brought in a sustainability director in Ashante Green, which is going to be an important review of everything that we do on the city level in terms of sustainability and resilience. And of course, you have Ann Colanesi, who has created that plan for resilience. But we are working hard to bring down as much money as we can for that, and we're going to start moving the dial on that. I mean, it's been made very clear from everything from the Jaguar Stadium to how we proceed with building, to electrifying our fleets, that these are all things that are incredibly important to me and to our citizens. It's going to save us a ton of money the more resilient that we can be. If for the folks who are bottom line folks, it's going to save us a ton of money the more resilient we can be, and we're going to focus on that.
We've got just about a minute left, but I did want to ask you about the housing authority issue that came up late last week. Your administration put a hold on a $60,000 raise for the chief at the housing authority, and now a pending report and investigation that's raised some concerns.
Yeah, what happened here is we had a couple of the board members who approached us and said, we're concerned about what's happening over here, that we just gave a relatively large raise, I think it was last year, and the director has come back and asked us for $100,000 in additional money, and there are things we feel like we need to look at. And so we said, well, we support you in your desire to look at those things. Now, at that point, I didn't know there was an IG report that was about to come out. I think there are 10 days left to respond to that IG report, and then the board will do whatever it's going to do on that front. But we were brought into this process because the board was concerned.
All right. Well, Mayor Deegan, thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you.